Good morning everyone, welcome to my channel. So today, very exciting, I'm going to be doing the tabs to connect all of my signatures together and then connect it to the actual cover, and we're going to be calling the journal complete. So I have arranged them in an order that I find pleasing. So this one is the first one. That sort of is the introduction to the whole project. Then we go in and start looking at some lace. It's all stitched down. All of the decorative panels are attached to the, I better do this in order, to the pieces of calico that form the base for all the signatures. And then this is the last one. Now, as for construction, this last one is going to anchor the little stack of them to the back of the cover. So I'll be putting some PVA glue here and adhering that down so it flips up. In the process, the tabs of which I'm going to stitch my signatures into, that will also adhere down. And I'll probably do them first, one at the bottom, one in the middle, and one there. So I'll glue them into position. Let the glue dry and then go and glue this surface to that surface. And then this page will just open up at the back of the book. And these signatures will then also be stitched into the tabs. As those tabs come up, I'll catch just with some little slip stitches these signatures like so. And then as that comes up, I've loosened off the thread along this edge because I wasn't sure through the whole process which would be the very front page. So I've chosen this, and now I can take out the thread that held that into position, and these will tuck into there, and I'll just stitch those tabs back down with some invisible stitch. Now I'll probably do that first. First let's rewind the tabs. Before I turned the camera on, I was stitching the edge of my tabs. Now you can do a few things to your spine, your spinal treatment, so to speak, of the journal. You could clad it with some lace, which I did think about doing because I've had calico or muslin pulled out to do this project for the whole time. But then when I sat down a few minutes ago, I've been working on my Christmas angel, and this fabric is lying here beside me, all the scraps. So I thought, I might just use this. I'm not exactly sure what it is. It's got a bit of a ribbed texture feel to it. I picked it up secondhand, so unfortunately I don't know the name of it, and I haven't sort of seen it since. But it's quite sturdy. It does have a bit of flex in it. It's got a bit of a speckle in it, as if it might be a seeded product. You know, it has a bit of cottonseed husk or whatever it is they use in seeded homespun, linen husk, I don't know. But it's nice and strong, it's textured, and I thought, I'll just use this instead of calico and putting some lace in there. The lace would go onto the tab after my signatures are stitched in, because it hides the main benefit of doing it is it hides where you stitch in these. So I guess if I've stitched them in the signatures or attach them to the tabs, and I don't like looking at my stitching, I might look at covering it with some lace. Who knows? It's a work in progress, isn't it? Sometimes the best laid plans, you think, oh no, I'm going to do that now. And that's what happened when I got into the room and saw this fabric, and I'm like, oh, there's some nice little morsels that could be used. You could make a different tab, each one completely different from the other. That'd be gorgeous. You can really play with your spine when you're doing floating spines because you can see them. Now I haven't done one like this at all where it's all sitting over to one side. Usually that would connect to this and it's, you know, floating still. But because I want to see that writing in the book, I've had to re-engineer my thinking a little bit. And I'm pretty sure this will work. My pieces of fabric here probably are a little bit long for what I need, but I can always trim it and re-knot the side stitch that I'm doing now, this little whip stitch. The main reason I'm doing the whip stitch too is this fabric, because it's so coarse, it frays really easily. So I thought, oh, I'll just, using some crochet cotton, good old classic number 8, I'll just whip stitch down that edge. It'll just hold it from fraying. Mind you, that looks like it's a selvage, so this will be purely decorative. So I might have to stop and start this video a little bit because the gluing process needs to dry. It might take me, it'll definitely take me overnight to get things dry and secure. I'll see how we go. Let's just whip stitch down this side, and that's the 2 done. So as for the tabs, you could do 3 like I am. You could do 1 big one that comes through here. I really enjoy seeing the spines of all the signatures. So I tend to use, you know, a tab scenario, but you can do, you know, anything. So once I get this side stitched, well, actually I've got another one to do. So maybe this is a good time to pause. I'll just finish this other side, riveting viewing for you all. And then I'll pause the video, finish the 3rd one. Now I'm not going to glue. I know at the beginning of the video, because I was at the back of the book, I sort of worked my way back with a bit of a brief overview of where we're heading. I'm not going to be gluing until right at the very end. I need all of these signatures attached to these tabs before I start gluing, because once it's glued into the book, it'll be just too hard to manhandle the signatures plus the book. Something will get damaged for sure. So I'm going to put the book aside and just focus on getting all of these signatures stitched onto these little pieces of fabric. Is the first port of call, and the first stage will be poking them in under here and attaching this side first. So we're going to work towards the back of the book. In my head, that seems to be the way to go. Been thinking about it a little bit. Make sure I get all my steps in the right way, otherwise it'll be a disaster. Won't be a disaster, it'll just be a new way of doing it. I'm sure we'll get there in the end, but I think this is the most logical way to do it. Like I said, I've done this a few times. So I'm a bit of a fan of the old fabric journal. It's a great place to store all of your stitcheries. They're dust free, and I just don't have the wall space to hang everything, let alone the budget to frame everything. Goodness, just getting very expensive, isn't it? All right. Didn't take long to stitch that. I'll just keep going. I'm sure I can natter about something. Like I said before, if I did say before, I can't remember. I've started this video 3 times. The first time I had a sneezing attack. I was like, oh my goodness. So regained composure. So there's like a 30-second video. Then I sat down after getting myself together. Now I've got a knot. I hit the play button, started chatting away. I probably got, 3 minutes in and realised the play button wasn't actually going. Must look again. Yes, it is 10 minutes. So it is working this time. So it's like, oh my goodness, third time lucky. Third time lucky. So yeah, the project has come to an end. Now this journal, I haven't done all of the prompts because I sort of had a bit of a theme happening. It was the travelling salesman visiting all those haberdashery stores, wanting to sell his wares. So I sort of had a bit of a theme running over this one. Oh, listen to those birds. It's about 5:30 in the morning here. And I could not sleep. I don't know why. I went to bed fairly early. I was pretty weary. So I went to bed early, and of course then at the other end I seemed to get up a little bit earlier. But I did toss and turn a little bit last night. Christmas is coming, so I'm starting to think about all of the preparations needed, and my guest list keeps growing, which is fun. Well, it's more New Year's that keeps growing. Christmas will be reasonably quiet, I think. Just be the immediate family. But New Year's is a moving target at the moment. Got quite a few that are coming in from interstate, and we're having a week together. So it'll be a household for a week. Should be absolute riot. I'm going to have a proper break. Well, I say that, but a few of them, they're good drinkers. Like, they love to have a drink of an evening. Me, not so much. So what'll end up happening, I can see it now. They'll all sit around and chat and have a few drinks, and I'll toddle off to bed early because I'm a bit of a teetotaler. And then I'll be up at the Cracker Sparrows because I didn't have the drinks, and I'll be stitching. You watch. So, yeah, I can see what's going to happen. But that's all good. It's my quiet time because it'll be so busy through the day. I'll be preparing meals and running around like a chook. But that's all good. I love doing it. So my mornings will be a coffee and a bit of stitching. I don't know what I'll be stitching, but I'll find something. Okay, last side. Maybe I should pause the video. I just don't want to chew too much of my time up, but it has gone reasonably quick. I'll hang in there. Oh, I can feel the coffee rushing through me. Whew, feeling a little toasty. The other thing I need to do is mark on these the middle, and then the other two spots for the signatures to be stitched into. And I don't need a lot of space between the signatures, so I'm going to keep it quite snug just to reduce the bulk. I'll show you what I mean. I'm just thinking, I might stitch them into here first. I think that'll set the, or do I mark it? I'm going to stitch it into the first one. Yeah. Because not only is it stitched in under here, it's also going to be stitched along that edge. We'll see. It'll work out, I'm sure. Now I've unthreaded the needle. Would be easier if it was one piece of fabric, not three. If you're a beginner and you'd like to go easy on yourself, one piece of fabric would probably be the easiest way to proceed. Two, yeah, three will just make it a little bit more stable, I think, because you've got those two and then the one in the middle. All right, so let's take the book out of the way, bring the tabs and the first signature down. Now I'm going to lift that, put that under there, that under there. I think I need to get myself a little bit more space to maneuver. I'll reinforce all that anyway in a moment. And in the middle, I'm just eyeballing it. So that'll be the first step. Let's pin that. And some invisible stitch will go through to catch those into position. They're nice and straight. They don't look straight. Gosh, it feels like a million years ago since I stitched these. Gosh, I suppose 6 months we've been doing the project. I'm fiddling a bit. I just want to give myself that little bit extra. Okay, very good. So invisible stitch the tabs underneath that pad first. So let's get one of those done. Then the next thing I want to do is stitch the spine onto the tabs, the spine of the signature. Let's get a thin needle. I like using a fairly fine needle for my invisible stitch, especially when there's a few thicknesses there. Okay, so I'm just going to sneak up in there. Oops, I did do a knot. I don't know what happened to it. All right, so I'm just going to bury my knot here and just sneak through all those layers, attaching the tabs. That's what this is about. It's attaching the tabs to the top. Just take a tiny little stitch along. You could do, you know, an inch, but I'm doing 1/4 of an inch because I really want this to be nice and secure. Now, once I have the actual tabs tucked in under that cover, get rid of the pin. I'll even stitch in there and in there. See, that one's not quite even. Look at the gap there. I'm going to move him. He's not quite central. So I will... So I'm just going straight through the fabric, and then when I come back up, that's when I go and move along a little bit. So straight down and then straight back up right next to that stitch. So that's now secure, and then scoot along a little bit further. Back up. So that's catching the edge of that piece back down to the signature because I took it apart just to get that tab end in there. Okay, so now I can end that off with a knot. So that little guy is now tucked in there, nice and secure. So the next one I'll do at the top here. I'll get this guy because I'm happy with its position. So I'll just make sure I get this little decorative piece nicely stitched down. I haven't even got to the tab yet. I might just scoot up a little bit, catch that top edge because I did loosen it all off. That's the good thing about stitching your pieces onto a base fabric. If you ever want to take them out, you can because you've got them attached with just a few little slip stitches. So if you've been hanging with me for some time, you'll know that I'm a bit of a fan of constructing my journals like that. Because you never know, you might want to enter a piece of embroidery into your local show. So you can just come along with your scissors and snip it out, and then you can just stitch it back in. Works a treat. Okay. Now I've still got a little bit of thread here, so I'm going to just reposition this little guy again. Ow! Ow! You little so-and-so. All right, I think that's better. Look at it sitting up in the air. It's like dangerous. No wonder I got myself. All right, so that's secure. So I'm just going to continue down the line, straight through, straight back up. Then do my little side stitch, trying not to have that stitch show through, of course. Does occasionally, and you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. If it bugs you, stop and unpull it, but there's enough thicknesses there for me to shimmy through. So that's nice and secure, and now I'm actually at the third. What's happened under there? Nothing? Nothing. The third tab. It's fiddly, but take your time. All hand sewing's fiddly, really. Have I got enough thread to finish the job? So the next thing I want to do is actually stitch the spine into these. I'll show you what I mean. I'm nearly there. It'll just help with that little bit extra stability on your spine, I think. Probably don't need to do it, but I don't want this area in the middle here slopping around. I want it actually attached like you would in a book. You know, every signature's got to be stitched in. Because we're trying to do not only the internals of the book, we're also creating the front page of a book as well. Even though it's within the pages of the main book, it technically is a front page within. Does that make sense? Okay. Would have to come unthreaded, wouldn't it? Okay, now we've got a middle here, which I think I'm going to put a little crease. You could iron it so you can see it. And then I'm going to do myself some little lines. I'll iron these out at the end, but it just gives me a point of reference for my stitching, because, and I'll do that on all of the insides of it, we want, what I might do so it doesn't wriggle is I'm going to place a pin here and a pin here. That'll keep them nice and straight. And I'm going to now stitch through there again. Now my fabric is quite thick, so my thoughts are my stitches should just disappear. But if you find that your stitches are visible and you want to decorate, that's where you can come back through and put a piece of lace here, here and here, and then some lace across the back here. We'll see how I go. I might end up doing that anyway because I can't help myself, and the more bits and pieces I can do, the better. You know how it is. All right, let me just spin this around. And I just want to bury my knot. Ow, oh, seriously? Oh, goodness me. It's a bleeder too. Oh, come on. It's because I'm using a very sharp needle. Oh, ouch. Might come up on the line? No. So this is why I've got this little line here. It really gives me a point of which to stitch through. So I'm just going to do little back stitches, just catching all of those layers. There's a knot. Of course there's a knot. And that leaves how many signatures left? 3. So just little stitches creeping down. Now you could do the 3-hole pamphlet stitch on that little tab, and you'd have a little piece of fabric. You'd have your cordage or your thread knotted off here. If you're wondering what the heck I'm talking about, just Google into or search in YouTube 3-hole pamphlet stitch. I have done it in the past on fabric, but I just find that it does flip-flop a little bit. You just can't go wrong with either running the sewing machine down or doing what I'm doing, some little back stitches. I'm making mine quite tiny little petite stitches because I really don't want to see them. Let's have a look. Yeah, that's good. So if I undo that pin, it should be caught there. Yep, it is. So now it's attached here and it's attached there. So I will pause the video now and I will stitch him and I will stitch him and then I will be back. What are we at? 30 minutes. All right, guys, won't be a moment. Okay, I'm back and they are stitched down to the spine. Perfect. All right, so let's close that signature up. And the next signature can be stitched on, which will be the pink one. So the next thing I've got to decide is the lines of which that we can stitch on. Where's a ruler? I'm thinking I don't want it to be too wide. If I make it a centimetre, I think it's too much. I'm going to make it 3/4 so it really tucks in to the previous, like so. So I might, how do I do this? Do I do it on the, no, I think that'll work. I know my middle because there's not a lot of space here between my decorative pages like the last one, so it's pretty easy to see the middle, but I'll draw a line anyway, can't hurt. And then lining my top and my bottom up, let me get this back into shot a little bit better, lining my bottom up here and my top up here. I'm going to pin through using my line that I just drew, and then just checking that I've caught it, yep, on the line on the tab. So it's a little fiddly, but if you take your time, you can pick your, whoops, you can get it. So I'm right on the line there, and if I have a little peek, I'm right on the line there. Yep, this is working. Keep my tabs nice and straight. So put the pin through and my pin through. And look, it's fabric, so if it wriggles around a little bit, it's not going to matter. Fabric is very forgiving. See, that looks pretty good. So then it's a case of stitch there, there, and there again. And then, once again, you add the next one. I'll draw it in, but I won't pin it because that's just going to add bulk and be in my way. And then I'll be able to get the iron and come back and just knock those marks out with the heat. Okay, let's get started again. So that's it. That's pretty much the gist of it. Once these signatures are all attached to this fabric, these tabs, that's when I'll do the gluing into the actual book. Now what I might do is, like before, just pin that there. That just stops them wriggling. Just to tack it there from, otherwise I'll end up stitching it down where I don't want it stitched. So they're attached, yep. Now I can get my fingers and I can feel in there the top of the spine. That's where my needle's going to kick off. Whoops, I need a good knot. Can bury my knot there a little bit. So I'll just do a couple stitches to anchor it. Now, flip it open, and we're looking for that black line, that halfway, and I was so close. I'll just reposition a little bit, and that's it. Now with my fingers underneath there, I can feel that tab fabric because it's nice and chunky. So I'm just doing a little back stitch once again through the layers. I'll just trim that little bit of purple fabric. It's just peeking into. There we go. Now I can see a little better. I can remove that pin because my fingers are in there stabilizing it. And it's just stitch it onto the tabs. That's it. So if you wanted to do a project and construct the book to start with, or gift someone a journal that had pages in it ready to go, you can do this whole stitching signatures to tabs, attach them into the book, whether it be this style or maybe you've stitched it into the spine of the actual cover as well. And then the pages are empty, ready for someone to embellish with their work. Would make a fantastic gift. There we go. Right. That's one done. So I'm just going to put my fingers under there and I can feel where that spine is. Bury my knot into that fabric. Come up, yep, right on the mark. Grab it with my fingers. Nothing like the feel of a fabric journal in your fingers. Oh, it's the most divine, thick, luscious thing. I was nearly going to pull that pin out, but I thought I'd better just hold the horses because you don't want it getting a bit skew-whiff. Now I can get rid of it. As long as my fingers don't move, otherwise it will be slipping and sliding. That's it. Like I said before, if you do the 3-hole pamphlet stitch, it could be a little bit more decorative then. You'd have your little strings, but it does flip and flop a little bit. Where's that stitch from? Okay. I can now feel that I'm back at the bottom. So I can do a couple little stitches there to finish it. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video. I'll stitch one more in, we've got time. Because the last stage is just the gluing it into position, which is not that hard. Number 2 on signature 2. Just threading the needle, guys. It's too short anyway. Let's get a new piece. Let's not be skimpy. I'll finish this little tab and then I will pause and I will add the remaining 2 and be back. Just double check your pages are up the right way too. You'd be quite disappointed if you got to the process of finishing and you realize that one of your signatures was up the wrong way. That would be very disappointing. So now we can stitch this signature in. The pin is really in the way, but I'm going to leave it there a little bit longer. Don't want it to go skew with. So my gap between my pages is not quite a centimetre. It's 3/4 of a centimetre. Like I said, I want it to nestle quite tightly because that then just reduces the bulk on the spine, on the tabs. There we go. And I'm nearly at the end of the tab. There we go. I can feel it underneath with my fingers. And that's it. Fiddly, but it is simple. And my stitches aren't showing through, so I won't really need to do anything decorative on the spine to hide them. That's because my fabric, my tab fabric is quite chunky. So it's, ow, pricked myself again. So now I can take these guys out. They're like the supporting pins. And the pink, yep, and it's a little bit out there. See that little line? Or is that the first line? No, that's, yeah, it's a little bit out. But that's okay. It's a fabric journal and that pin can come out. So now we've got two. And those little lines that I drew look pretty good to me for my third. So once again, I will give myself a bit of a guide with my pen. It's really just to give myself a straight line. Okay, and then it's a case of line your top and your bottom up of your page, your top and your bottom. Then pop your pin through and then aim for the line on the other side and pin it. And then just take a moment to double check. I haven't caught the tab as such. Not quite. Needs to just come over a fraction. That's better. No, see, I've come over too far. See the little line is still visible? It's fiddly, but just take your time, double check. That's better. I think that is in a better position. Still not right. Let me just spin it around and try from a different angle. Reaching over myself a little bit. So top and bottom are even. Yep. That's better. Spot on. And then what I might do is while I'm here, just pin that guy there just to hold him. I won't be able to pin that because that's paper. Let's go into there. find our line. Yeah, that's a bit better. Coming from this angle, I can see. Yep, spot on. Go through. Happy with that. Happy with that. It's nice and flat on the underside. Yep, that's great. All right, so I'm going to pause the video, stitch these on, then I'll mark it again and stitch the last signature into position, and they'll all be attached. Then it'll be time to glue it into the actual journal. All right, guys, I shall pause the video, be back in a moment. Okay, I'm back. Everything is stitched into position. There's my tabs there with all the signatures attached, and I've got this little bit of extra that I can now attach to the cover. So what the plan is now is to glue the tabs down first and then the back cover. So the thing is to get it all lined up and then just carefully open the journal with a little bit of pressure down on the end pages. Now, I did take time when I was creating this last page to make sure that it all fit. I can feel the indent in there of the spine. So now I can peel that back and I can apply my glue to these. Now, do I need them to be as long as they are? Probably not, but I think I'll leave it for extra support. So the first thing I'm going to do is apply the glue to the tabs. Then I'm going to find something heavy. There's that mozzie again. It's still here. I've swung at him a few times, but obviously have missed. So yeah, I'm going to let this lot dry first before I attach the final piece down. I just want to make sure that, you know, I take my time and everything is nicely adhered. It won't take long. It's, you know, 3 or 4 hours and it's pretty much done, but I can feel the bend of the book there. So I know I'm pretty close. And like I said, fabric is very flexible. So there's a little bit of give there. Just give it a bit of pressure so the glue seeps into the fabric fibers. That's good. Then, I don't know if I should close that or not. I just want to have a little peek to make sure that it's sitting right. Yeah, it is. Yep, good. All right. Oh, see what I mean by allowing it. Let me spin it around. I could nearly do with something. Yeah, here, look. I'm going to support that there. Yeah, that's good. Yep, that's not going to pull it. It's going to allow it to actually settle with some glue. If that's the case, maybe I can scoot ahead and lay this guy down. I think I will. I'm happy with that support. Look, I'm just telling you one thing and doing completely the opposite. Take your time with it. No rush. But I can't help myself. So I'm going to just manipulate that glue into the fabric. And the good thing about PVA is you have a little bit of time, and as soon as it starts to feel a bit tacky, that's actually the good time to start laying it down and finding its forever position. If it's too wet, it just is going to slip and slide a little bit. So to have it a little bit tacky is probably what I would do. So that gives you time to make sure that it's nice and thin and just starting to go off. Might put a bit more on that fabric. But once it's glued, it'll be glued. Don't slide down, stay there. I just make sure I've got plenty around these pressure points up into there. And up into there. Then I'll just find something heavy to support that back. And that's it. Now, before I forget, on the front flip out, we use the tie, the sewing tape, fake sewing tape tie to tie the page together. And it's sort of in the center here and it flips out. I did toss around doing that at the back here, but I didn't want bulk in the spine, so I thought that's not going to work. I didn't want all the ties hanging out at the end of the book, down here where my finger is tapping. And then I thought, well, I probably won't even need it because we're creating a book in the traditional form. The weight of all of these pages sitting on the back and the back being anchored, it's not going to flip-flop like the one on the inside would. Because as you open the book, without it being tied, it flips. So, yeah, I didn't need to end up really worrying about having to secure this last page, being that it's a flip because it's attached. So it worked out quite well. I know that was a debate that I had probably 4 videos ago when I was trying to work out how I do my flip at the back, but it turned out not really being a flip. Does that make sense? Not in the sense that the front cover is. That feels really good. And it hasn't come through to the decorative side. So I'm just going to now lay all those pages. This one here, I'm actually going to trim. It's just sticking past the edge of the book a little. And there's plenty there that I can trim it back. So I might do that. The beautiful thing about fabric pages is you can manipulate what you do with them very easily with a pair of scissors. Chop, problem solved. Yep. That's good. That's real good. So now with a little bit of pressure on that, find something heavy to sit on it. My book, my journal of treasures is complete. And this is what I was referring to. I thought I'd have to do this treatment at the rear of the book because it would be a flip, but it's not. It is nice and secure within the weight of all the pages. So that worked out really, really well. Because I didn't want threads here. If I was to do a flip and the fold was here and the opening here and then an attachment like this, I'd have all this mess in here. And I don't. So I love how I've just got this one. Bit of a sneaky look in there. There you go. Done. So there's my journal complete. Oh, I love it. With a floating spine. And I can still see this beautiful old spine inside. I covered that way back in the beginning with a bit of PVA glue. So that's nice and secure. And then I've got Oh, I probably shouldn't do this because there's my tab spine in there. All right, guys, I'm gonna say goodbye. Thank you for joining me on the journey of making this book of treasures. I haven't yet put any numbers or any little signifying elements like I have here. I just ran out of time last night and I really wanted to get into the book and stitched and, you know, finished. So I can do that another day. Plenty of time. All right, guys, look after yourselves. Have a lovely day and thank you for joining me on the journey creating my journal of treasures. Thank you. Bye.